splashdown located in the Gulf of America off the coast of Tallahassee, Florida.
This is the thing that's landing right now.
And splashdown. Crew 9 back on Earth.
And SpaceX Freedom, splashdown. Good main release.
Copy, splashdown. We seem to cut. Nick, Alex, Butch, Sunny, on behalf of SpaceX, welcome home.
I mean, that thing's like burning hot.
It's an amazing water ride. I see a capsule full of grins ear to ear.
That thing is burnt up. That's really burnt up. Going live. You should watch. But yeah, it's.
And as you can see on your screen, we have visual confirmation of splashdown. Dragon Freedom has returned home, and NASA astronauts.
System safety verifications are in progress. We'll report back when recovery personnel are en route.
That's kind of cool.
Understand that we're in section 2, 4.800 landing response. And looking for your word on if it is necessary.
Flight is diverting. That's oh my.
In the distance, we can see the recovery vessel making its way.
Copy, you're in section 2 for the environmental assessment in 4.800. That is not necessary today.
Understand. Raising button.
So we will continue to have communications between the Corps and Nick Hague, the commander of Crew Dragon Freedom, which just splashed down 2 minutes ago off the coast of Tallahassee, Florida. Dragon Freedom has returned home with NASA astronauts Nick Hague, Sunny Williams, Butch Wilmore, and Roscosmos cosmonaut Alexander Gorbunoff. They're back on Earth after approximately 17 hours of a return journey from space.
The SpaceX recovery ship and team have been waiting for Dragon's splashdown, and they will now make their way to the splashdown location. The teams have been ready and waiting about 3 nautical miles away, so it's going to take them about 30 minutes or so to make their way to
SpaceX Freedom. Pretty sure we're in stable 1.
Copy, stable 1. We see the
very
same.
long time. Sitting and doing absolutely nothing.
It's going to take about 30 minutes for the recovery team to make their way over to Nick, Sunny, Butch, and Alexander, who are still seated and secured inside that Dragon spacecraft there on your screen. Incredible views there of that thermal protection system, or TPS. That Dragon capsule was pristine white color before it departed the station, and we can see how the reentry phase, the thermal protection system did its job. Now, if you're wondering what that hole, that bucket area is, that is underneath the side hatch. That is where the main parachutes were stored. So when we saw the Dragon capsule docked at station, it looked very different. The panel that protects and covers the main parachutes, that was still intact, as well as the panels that enclose where the drogue parachutes are located. We can see those fast boats.
SpaceX is go for recovery personnel to approach. Expect personnel alongside in the next few minutes.
Freedom copies.
We can see those fast boats. We weren't kidding when we said they were fast. While it does take about 30 minutes for the main recovery vessel to make its way over to the capsule, these fast boats will be doing a couple of things simultaneously. A couple of them are going to be working to retrieve the parachutes that you see in the background there of this drone shot. Those parachutes will be retrieved from the ocean surface. We want to make sure we are able to pull those out. The recovery vessel there closest to the spacecraft is going to be performing some safety checks We can see there they're using an instrument that is basically working to detect if there are any hypergolic vapors or fumes that are still residing in and or around the Drago thruster nozzles or outlets. The hypergolic fuel, which is necessary for on-orbit burns to maneuver the spacecraft. Unfortunately, those hypergolics are unable to be breathed. They are toxic, and so this team here is doing those initial safety checks to make sure that it is safe for the rest of the recovery team to approach the spacecraft. They're also checking to make sure that any residuals from the pyros are safe and are not going to cause any issues. We can see the team working their way around the spacecraft to do these basically these sniff tests on all of those Draco thrusters.
And as we continue to await the recovery of our Dragon spacecraft with NASA astronauts Nick Hague, Sonny Williams, Butch Wilmore, and Roscosmonaut Alexander Gorbanov inside, Dragon has autonomously completed several steps to safe itself following splashdown. We are continuing to see Dragon in what is known as stable into the recovery of Megan.
Whatever you call it, I don't.
Following splashdown, it's upright, and the Dragon capsule's in the right configuration for it to be hoisted into the recovery vessel Megan, which you do see a little ways off in your screen approaching. Dragon will continue to remain live on air with you. Joining us, the mission has gone, if you just joined smoothly so far. Florida 2:55 p.m. Pacific.
"17 hours prior to splashdown, Dragon autonomously undocked from the International Space Station, completed a series of departure burns, jettisoned its trunk section, and performed its final burn, the deorbit burn. This placed the Dragon spacecraft on a trajectory to Tallahassee, Florida. Dragon entered the Earth's atmosphere, followed by deployment of its parachute craft.
Are they gonna open it? Are they gonna
Harnessing around of the water. Of the water.
Continuing to get some views of the recovery.
Go ahead, Sam. Lift it out of the water that are required as Go ahead, Sandra.
Continue off the coast, off the coast, off the coast, off the off 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 the off the coast, off the off the off the off the off the coast of Tallahassee, Florida. Weather off the coast of Tallahassee, Florida. Weather was pristine. We were able to get undocked from the International Space Station as expected at 10:05 p.m. Pacific time yesterday evening, and Crew Dragon has since completed steps ahead of its 2:57 p.m. Pacific at 2:57 p.m. Pacific, and we're now stepping and hoisted up onto the Megan recovery vessel and get the crew extracted out of the spacecraft. You did see some of the parachutes that were near the spacecraft. Upon detection of landing, Dragon automatically releases those parachutes from pulling the spacecraft. Dragon then automatically safes any pyrotechnics that may still be and may automatically perform additional minor systems,
Freedom, basic,
and the communication
basics.
Space access is freedom.
Be loud and clear.
Very safe, cleared the spacecraft for water recovery for
Passengers inside are probably going
on a jet ski to help gather up the
disappointed. Elon. Trump's like, oh, Elon, no, look at our little Elon.
the parachutes that were automatically detached from the Dragon spacecraft upon splashdown.
And it will take a little over 10 minutes for the recovery crew to complete their safety checks. Once they complete, the team will begin preparing Dragon to be lifted. And as you see, they are preparing for that to take place at this point. As part of the preparation for this lift, one member of the recovery team has climbed on top of the spacecraft already so they can attach Dragon's hoist rings and connect to the lifting lines. It will take us less than an hour to raise Dragon to the recovery boat and remove the crew from the spacecraft. After medical checkouts, the crew will return to land within 4 hours by helicopter. And if no additional medical assistance is needed, the crew will board a waiting NASA plane and depart for Houston. And as we continue to await Dragon to be hoisted up onto the ship, we have a very special treat. NASA Public Affairs Officer Jaden Jennings, who is actually on the recovery vessel and had a bird's eye view of the splashdown today. Jaden, how are you? How was the view from the recovery vessel?
Hi, Sandra. How do you hear me?
I've got you loud and clear, Jaden. It's so great to hear you.
Awesome. So splashdown, Sandra, was nothing
Freedom,
short of
be advised.
spectacular.
We are transitioning the forward link. Comm will be unavailable for approximately 5 minutes.
Freedom comes.
Oh, he's on there. He's on it.
Thanks so much, Jaden. We just have some communications letting us know that we'll have about a 5
Followed by 4 healthy white and orange main parachutes. All down as it slowly propelled into the ocean. And I think I speak for all of us on the ship when I look forward to having Crew 9 on board with us a little later.
Jaden,
Reflecting from it. And, Kay, I think the crew's going to like what they feel otherwise on this picture perfect day for
looks like a beautiful day. Can you the recovery forces to get to this point?
one recovery was the onboard training to ensure they were ready to return on a Dragon spacecraft. That training, all aspects of their return, including nominal and contingency departures, the orbit burns, splashdown, and post-landing ops, which is what this team is preparing for now. As for the recovery teams themselves, we started the day taking a series of helicopters out to them, and as standard, the recovery director and crew support teams were on that first helicopter out and took the time to get everything prepared on the ship. About 2 hours before splashdown, they deployed those fast boats and jet skis into the water. I was actually on the second helicopter out, and we were on the vessel about an hour and a half before splashdown and landed on top of the helicopter pad on the Megan. And the teams have been working diligently across their respective disciplines this week, executing what can only be described, in my point of view, as a logistical masterpiece, just ensuring every detail has been in place for Crew 9's return.
that is such great news. I'm so glad that you're able there to experience. Can you tell us a little bit about what's next to retrieve the crew for the recovery personnel on board?
Yeah, Kate, setting up next, Dragon will be hoisted into the on-deck translation system, or the nest, at the aft end of the ship, and then will be translated pretty quickly towards that egress platform. We'll perform another series of safety checks as final precautionary measures just to make sure there are no, before opening that side hatch of the spacecraft is open, the crew will be assisted out of the capsule by one from NASA and SpaceX.
Freedom, SpaceX, comm check.
Freedom. Loud and clear.
Thanks, Nick. Here as pleasure.
And Jaden, if you did just want to go ahead and let us know what is next to retrieve the crew, we are continuing to get some great views on our screen, but I know you have an even better view yourself.
Oh, yeah, Sandra, this view is absolutely unbeatable. So just to kind of finish off what I was saying is once that side hatch of the spacecraft is open, that crew will be assisted out of the capsule one by one from NASA and SpaceX medical personnel, where they will then head a med bay. And after those checks, they will get on that first helicopter out and arrive at the airport, then board a NASA plane, and then head back to Houston, Texas at the Johnson Space Center post-flight period. And we're eager to see the Crew 9 astronauts back on Earth, and we'll keep you updated on every moment of this process. With that, I'll toss it back over to you guys at Hawthorne.
Thank you so much. That was a public affairs officer who flashed down firsthand from the recovery vessel Megan. So we're continuing to get these great views on our unit splashdown at 2:57 p.m. Pacific time off the coast of Tallahassee, Florida. The recovery personnel are continuing to step through procedures Dragon onto the recovery vessel pad that Jaden, that's that helicopter that Jaden was just to the coast of Florida, and then eventually they'll fly back to Houston.
Just underneath that helipad is that translation deck where we will see the nest. Once it is loaded up with the Dragon spacecraft on board, the nest will be translated to the forward end of the recovery vessel, and that is where our Crew 9 team members will egress from the Dragon spacecraft. Now, here on your screen, we can see dolphins, actually, who want to come and play with Dragon. Now, one of the fast boats there in place, working to assist the recovery team member. It's incredible. I just love these views. We really see them even better in daytime, but just seeing the recovery team work in tandem to step through each step, to step through each operation. You know, obviously they're getting quick assists from the honorary part of the recovery team, those dolphins in the water there. Now, the recovery team member that is crawling around the Dragon spacecraft. Earlier we saw a view where it was like a spider monkey pose. We can see that individual now standing in the bucket where the main parachutes were stored while Dragon was on orbit. Obviously, those main parachutes were utilized for splashdown today. They were deployed and cut from the Dragon capsule, and one of the fast boats one of the other fast boats of the recovery team working to pull those out of the water. Now, the recovery team member that is there working on top of the Dragon capsule checks. Now we can see on the capsule. This harnessing is what recovery vessel. Oh, we got a cute little pod of dolphins. It wasn't just one or two.
I mean, that water just looks beautiful. We had ideal splashdown parameters today. Obviously, beautiful, as Jaden mentioned, in the SIG capsule here shortly once they get hoisted onto the vessel Megan.
Slowly but surely closing the distance there between, dolphin cam back again, that the Dragon capsule and the recovery vessel, that distance is just one more step as we continue to operations for Dragon Freedom. And we anticipate the lift of the Dragon capsule to occur here in just 8 minutes. Now, once all of the rigging is on the capsule and it's hooked up to the recovery vessel, we will see the hydraulic arm, which is that kind of like bridge-like structure there at the aft end of the recovery vessel. We'll see that articulate backwards, and that's a good sign that we're getting even closer to pulling the capsule out of the water. It will then move forward. And
First context, this on the top here, this is what took them up there, and this is what they're in. So I just think it's insane. They walked through that. They got in there thinking, oh, we're gonna go to space. It's gonna be amazing. I don't know what that's gonna look like. I don't know what it's like or not. I don't even know. But yeah, that was in the nose of the aircraft the entire time, and it still is. But wild. They walked through there. They walked through that again. They got in a spacecraft. This buses over now. They got out of it. They got out of it in states. It's crazy. Amazing. Back.
So again, Dragon continuing to get closer and closer to the recovery vessel, Megan. You see some of those ropes now coming into view as well.
That tastes good.
You are just joining us. Crew 9 splashed down off the coast of Tallahassee, Florida at 2:57 p.m. Pacific time with NASA astronauts Nick Hague, Butch Wilmore, Sonny Williams, and Roscosmos cosmonaut Alexander Gorbanov.
Please,
They're now working through procedures to hoist this spacecraft up onto the recovery vessel Megan.
We just talking to myself, which is I'm good with. It's fine. There's anyone out there? I want a super chat. Give me a super chat. Violet, I'm live.
saw that hydraulic arm get lowered into the lifting position. That arm will be the mechanism that is utilized to lift Dragon up and out at the arm with.
It's out of the water.
So once securely on.
Welcome aboard the recovery vessel. Recovery personnel are completing final checks and stand by for translation to the egress platform.
Freedom copies.
Great news are letting us know that Dragon Freedom has been successfully recovered from the water's surface. If you've just joined us, we had an on-time splashdown at 5:57 p.m. Eastern Time, and we can now see that the water recovery operations are continuing to progress. The nest where the Dragon spacecraft is located is going to get moved forward. This will happen after the recovery crew members some checks, and we'll also see, obviously, the space splashdown in salt water. Salt water is corrosive, and we want to try and rinse
Okay, copy that. Thanks.
And with that, the team is just going to adjust the Dragon spacecraft a bit so that it's in the right position ahead of translating up a little bit closer ahead of the side hatch. So the team is now going to step through the procedure.
Autonomously in that nest.
I'll put up that on behind.
Once Dragon is fully seated in the nest, we'll probably see a bunch of salt water come out from the bucket there located underneath the side hatch. See some salt water splash out. As I mentioned before, one of the recovery team members will begin hosing down the exterior, hosing down.
Great live views on NASA astronauts Nick Hague, Sunny Williams, Butch Wilmore, and Roscosmos cosmonaut Alexander Gorbanov, who splashed down off the coast of Tallahassee, Florida, 2:57 p.m. Pacific time this afternoon. Now working to that spacecraft situated in the nest. Just making some final adjustments and tweaks to ensure that it's nice and secure.
Once the spacecraft is and secured and oriented correctly in the nest, again, will be moved into the hangar located underneath that helipad that we saw earlier from the aerial views.
All right, Freedom, we're settled into the nest now. Team is working through hypergol sweeps.
Call out there telling that the recovery team is doing the round of those hypergolic sweeps. This helps ensure that everyone, all the recovery members that are located, basically right where this camera is located on, towards the forward end of the recovery vessel, that they will all be safe once the spacecraft is. So we're just doing some additional steps to make sure that the hypergolic propellant that is utilized for maneuvering the Dragon capsule while on orbit, making sure that none of those vapors are still present on the exterior of the capsule.
That's right, and there are a variety of individuals on board the boat that help with recovery. Not only do we have the recovery personnel that you see here, but we also have a doctor that will check out the crew members as standard procedure. As with any spacecraft that is returning from space, we always perform a medical check with the crew. So you will see the crew come out of the capsule and be placed on stretchers, just like with the Soyuz Dragon splashdown. That is the nominal procedure.
Everyone watch the stream. Craft safely.
We'll stand by to see Dragon Freedom translate or scooch up a little bit closer to the camera angle that we're seeing right here. And then teams will step through procedures to get that side hatch opened. You see it right in the dead center of your screen there. It's kind of that rectangular shape. It has not been opened since Crew 9, which include Nick Hague and Alexander Gorbanov, launched back in September from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. So that will be the very first time that hatch is opened. Once docked to the International Space Station, crew enter through the top hatch, which was where the nose cone is now closed. That's the hatch that they actually utilize to go ahead and get inside the International Space Station. So as we get a little closer to that hatch opening procedure, you might start to see more individuals come into frame for some of that support. The ship has a maximum capacity of a little over 40 people on board, and it takes a variety of different roles, as we've discussed, to support. Also on board is the chief of the astronaut office for NASA, that's Joe Acaba.
Hey, look at that. Look, there's like an alien on the deck. And they blocked it off so the people they don't come running. I mean, they're gonna come off, they're gonna sprint across the ocean.
Translation of the Dragon base platform there, the recovery platform that be in the foreground. It is important to note that Nick, Sunny, Butch, and Alexander will be getting assistance from the recovery teams